Hey guys, in this week's episode, we are talking about Beau is Afraid. But before that, we are talking about Barry Season 4's premiere and our thoughts on The Mandalorian Season 3 wrap-up. So, join us!
Welcome to the Casual Cinecast, powered by Cinelinx. My name is Chris, and with me as always is Mike. Tell me, what are you afraid of?
Snakes.
Snakes? Perfect. Mike is afraid of snakes. Also with us, speaking of things I'm afraid of, not Justin himself, but space. Justin, I hear that you recently edited like NASA's promo that was pretty big. Congratulations, man. I'm really impressed.
Thank you. Yeah, it was the sort of a Artemis 2 crew announcement video. It played at the end of the live event where they announced them, and it's, if you go to like the official NASA YouTube, it's kind of I can't remember what it's called exactly because they named it something different whenever they posted it to YouTube, but it's like getting to know the astronauts or whatever. Starts out with them in silhouettes if you want to watch it. It was pretty cool to be a part of.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
If you want to know, like, I try to impress my other friends by telling them that story. Oh, I have a friend that did this. So,
Yeah. So it was my first big like editing project. So it was a big one for the first one, but it was rad.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I knew who the astronauts were for like a week before everyone else.
How'd you walk around with such information in your brain?
Wasn't easy. Easy.
What happened if you told somebody?
I'd probably be in real big trouble, to be honest. Like it was pretty fun, like getting ready to shoot some of the footage we did for that, because like we didn't even know which astronauts were going to be showing up to the shoot. We were all just standing around waiting for them to walk in the room, you know. And whenever we kind of found out, and they were like, okay, they're on their way, like everyone. The people who knew and were about to tell us like looked around the room and had to take like survey of who's all in the room. It's like, is everyone here on the they can know list or not?
Wait,
like,
did you shoot this as well?
I was on set when we were shooting. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I didn't shoot it in any sort of like I was DP or director way, but I was on set and giving my 2 cents in here and there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
They all looked over to you for a yes or no. Just kidding. I'm sure that didn't happen.
Sometimes yes, it made me feel more important because like as editor they wanted me there to make sure like, is this gonna cut, is this gonna work? So sometimes they would look at me and be like, how was that fast enough, was it too slow? So I felt important.
Yeah, it's because you are important, man.
Yeah, important to me, at least in my heart.
Yeah, important to helping you impress people.
Yes, you got to keep it up, man. I don't got much, just my important friends.
Yeah, and additionally, I'm also very afraid of frogs.
Oh, okay. Frogs?
What are you afraid of, Chris?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Not frogs. That's throwing me for a loop. Man, I think like a submarine, like being in a submarine with all the water around you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. How specific?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I kind of have that in the sense that I don't like the ocean, and
yeah, the ocean's scary. I think that's because
you
it's
don't
so
want to
unknown.
be 1,000 foot deep under it.
Yeah.
No. I think the thing is like I've never registered submarines as like something to be scared of because I know somewhere on a basic level that I will never be in one.
That's true.
Yeah.
So I need not be scared of them.
Fair
All
enough.
right.
I'm near frogs way too much, so rational fear
down there in Houston, it's all there are frogs. Like after it rains, you can't hear anything but frogs. They're coming for you,
Sounds like a
man.
movie I like. Anyways, if this is your first time listening, normally we like to start off every episode in a section called News on the March, where we talk about the film and TV that we have been watching and want to talk about on here. Then we move into our feature review. Like I said at the top of the show, we will be discussing Beau is Afraid.
Yeah, also one of the things we like to do here on the Casual Cinecast is we put out Casually Criterion episodes. Every other-ish week. We've been pretty good about it lately.
It's every other episode, if not every other week.
Yeah, every other episode for sure. So how that works is we each pick a film sometimes from the Criterion Collection. Mistakes sometimes are made, but not most of the time.
Whatever could you be referring to?
Yeah, I don't know. It's coming up. But each of us, we pick a film from that collection, and then we put it out onto Twitter. And then we let you, the listener, vote on it. And then we watch that film and put it out. So we have a new Twitter poll out. Mike, what are the results?
All right. So our current poll was based on Ari Aster's Adventures in Moviegoing, where we each went through the list of the films that he chose, and we picked a Criterion film, or so we all thought, that was on the list. All right. The winner of the poll was Songs from the Second Floor with 40%. And then the next two were tied with Sancho the Bailiff at 30% and Hiroshima Mon Amour with 30%. And those were chosen by me and Justin, respectively. Now,
Yes.
guys, I ask you, not Chris, Justin, what's wrong with this poll?
Well, the winning film is not a Criterion film.
And again,
To put it
remind the
succinctly.
listeners, even though I just told them, who chose that one?
Last I checked, it was Chris. If I
Look,
remember
guys.
correctly.
Hang on,
Look.
let me see if I get the same thing on my... Yep. Yep, it was
Confirmed.
Chris.
Maybe choosing Ari Aster's Adventures in Moviegoing on the Criterion channel was a bad idea. I will admit that, because he put out a bunch of movies. Some of them were in the collections. Apparently, some of them weren't.
Yeah.
So
I
guess,
realized that.
Yeah, you
And I
realized that
made-
you
Yeah.
knew that Songs from the Second Floor wasn't part of the collection. Yet you let
No,
it go
I
by.
knew that certain films on there were not part of the collection. So I chose one that I knew for a fact was part of the collection, and I didn't.
He just
research
trusted you
further.
to do the same thing.
Yeah. I
Fair,
have faith
fair.
in my fellow podcast hosts to do their hosting duties adequately.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that's a minimum, right? Like, if we're choosing Criterion films, at a bare minimum, these films should be from the Criterion collection.
I mean, that's what I think.
They can be boring, they can be long, whatever, They can be bad, good, whatever. But they should at least be from the Criterion collection, I think.
sure. So what do we do? That's the question here.
I mean, the people want Songs from the Second Floor,
That's what they chose.
but I don't know if we can do it as a Casually Criterion episode just because that doesn't make sense to me. So,
Yeah.
Well, it is
We
on the
either-
Criterion channel. We don't say Casually Criterion Collection. We don't differentiate between the two.
yeah, but in the spiel at the beginning, we say we put out Casually Criterion episodes where listeners
That's
choose
true.
a film from
Yeah.
the Criterion
I
collection.
just said that, didn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can do it, but I just don't think it's going to be a Criterion episode, or we could flip a coin and do an actual Criterion one and maybe save the Songs from the Second Floor for like a week where nothing cool's come out.
Or the inevitable Criterion release that will probably come down the road since it's on the
Yeah, we could
Criterion channel.
re-release this episode if we do Songs from the Second Floor.
Yeah.
Because it's already on the channel. That means
Well,
it's
the
got
thing is, we've reviewed lots of films that end up being in the Criterion collection
That's true.
True.
eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What if we
We don't
record
rebrand those episodes.
What if we record the episode on Songs from the Second Floor and just never release it until
Just sit on it.
it comes out one day?
We should just get ahead of the game by recording a bunch of episodes.
Just put it in the can.
Yeah. Our News on the March segment will be way out of date, but
Yeah. All right, Mike, what do you think? What's your vote?
I say we do one of the 30%ers.
Yeah.
Just because also I don't have the Criterion channel, so.
Yeah.
it's also on Amazon. But yeah, I get it.
Okay.
Um,
Chris,
okay,
do you
so-
agree? We can hang
okay.
on to Songs from the Second Floor for seriously, whenever there's not, nothing's out
Yeah.
in theaters that we want to review.
I want to two things. Yeah, it's my mistake. I chose it, and it wasn't part of the collection, so I get it. But two, this is my third time in a row to win, even if it wasn't a technicality. It's like the 61, the Roger Maris year, where he got the little asterisk for home runs next to his.
Yeah, but
name.
then it's discovered you're cheating.
No, he didn't cheat though.
I know, but you are. That's what I'm
not on
saying.
steroids.
You're choosing films that that aren't even in the list.
Yeah, that's why there's an asterisk. Okay. I'm
right,
good with whatever you guys decide.
Okay, Justin, think of a number between 1 and 20.
Okay.
Chris, say a number between 1 and 20.
15.
All right, Justin, what'd you have?
13.
I had 9. Looks like Justin wins.
Okay. I don't know what the rules were, but I'm glad
I don't
won.
either. Playing fast and loose, but
All
Does
right.
that mean Justin...
Hiroshima Mon Amour. Are we good with that?
Oh,
Yeah.
I see.
I'm cool.
I'm good with
Cool
that.
with that. All right. That's our next criterion, people. Sorry to those who voted who vehemently wanted to hear a review on Songs from the Second Floor.
Yeah.
We're going to get
But
the
we'll
most
get there one day.
hate mail ever because we didn't do this. But also, any mail is good mail.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
Unless it has anthrax. As Chris said,
Millennials and Generation Z might not get that.
it's fun that we're the blockbuster generation. That's who this is for. They all get it. Anyways, if you want to vote in our criterion polls, which are usually valid, go to our Twitter at casualcinecast. If you want to send us hate mail, you can send DMs to that Twitter account. You can email us at casualcinemedia@gmail.com. And of course, if you haven't done so already, you want to help other people find the show, you enjoy it, go into iTunes, give us a 5-star review, like us on Spotify, I don't know, subscribe, wherever. It's all good.
Yeah. Please and thank you. Okay. And I say it's been a minute, so let's just get into news on the march now.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. Now.
News on the march.
So, Justin, you start us off talking about Barry season 4. Go.
Okay. Wow. I was very surprised when Barry season 4 came out, to be honest. As about as surprised as I were how brief you were with that toss to me.
Yeah.
I had no idea it was even coming out, and then suddenly there it was, 2 episodes of Barry
Just
season
waiting
4.
for you.
Yeah, and took me a minute to get around to him. That's why we didn't do it last week, but I got around to him I think late last week or over the weekend, and I'm happy to report that Barry remains a good show. I really like it. I think it's and it seems less funny this season, but I don't know if that's just because some of the humor isn't quite as ha ha ha, and then everything else going around is so heavy when it's not being funny, and it slowly getting heavier and heavier every season. So it does feel like it's lost a bit of like the humor that I enjoyed, even though there's still a little bit of it in there. But so far, I'm liking the direction of the season. It feels it's leaning a lot more into that surreal sort of stuff that reminds me a lot of some of the Fellini films like Amarcord and La Dolce Vita, some of the surreal sequences, 8.5, that sort of thing, with some of the flashback scenes and the way that they handle those. Because they're doing this thing where it's often, we don't just cut to a scene, we cut to like current older Barry, like watching himself in the distance, watching a scene from his childhood play out, and he's like in the same space and area as it. And I don't know, I think they're handling that in a way that I appreciate. I guess I appreciate the artisticness of it, and I guess that's kind of showing how the show is like evolving and has grown and kind of found its own voice versus the first season, which felt very much like pretty much a straightforward dark comedy, and they've kind of slowly found their own artistic sort of surreal sort of voice, and I think that's I find myself enjoying and appreciating the show more and more as it does that and kind of separates itself from being just a straight dark comedy. So I think so far so good on this season. I've only watched the first 2 episodes. There's a third out as we're recording this, but I haven't watched it yet. But I'm curious to see where this goes, and I have a feeling that this might be a season where our opinions kind of shift on Gene Cousineau, because so far he's basically been pretty lovable. And I'm wondering if he's going to be that way by the end of the season.
Wasn't he kind of a jerk as a acting teacher? And he's
I don't know. I mean, like, I think Henry Winkler is charming, so that may make him likable, but I don't think any of the characters in this show are particularly likable in the classical sense. They're all kind of bad people. And
varying degrees, yes.
yeah, like narcissistic and stuff like that.
Well, I guess I feel like that's coming out in him more. So,
Sure.
or that's going to like come to the forefront more this season. But it's like, yeah, he was, but in the way that, like, I think part of what the show is that everybody in LA is a bit of a narcissist.
Roasting Hollywood in the way it does.
Yeah, and he was like, I don't know, kind of in the same way that like Carl Weathers is in Arrested Development, where he's just like, first and foremost, making a buck.
Right.
Then he might care about you. And I always found that to be like funny jerkiness as an acting coach. But I understand that it may make him less, not lovable per se. But anyways, positive reviews so far. Chris, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm really enjoying it so far. Like, Bill Hader is directing every single episode this season, so definitely what you're saying about the voice being consistent, I think, is definitely going to be there. He directed a lot of, I think, season 3. So I think it's definitely found its voice, and Bill Hader definitely has this way of moving the camera that's really interesting. There's I have seen the 3rd episode, and there's a sequence in there that's really cool. Yeah, I really like it. I don't know that I like any of the characters anymore. It's kind of like the Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad of like comedies. And even Breaking Bad kind of started off at what I thought was going to be a comedy, you know, like, but this has kind of moved into, well, I like uncomfortable watching territory because I used to like these characters so much, you know, even though I don't think that they were ever really good, but I liked them still. And now they've kind of like crossed that precipice, you know, like they've crossed the line. And I don't know that there's really any character that I really am rooting for, but I do want to see how it turns out. I am really interested in seeing what Bill Hader, this actually ties into Beau is Afraid too, because Bill Hader was in that. But I am interested in seeing what Bill Hader does as he goes on, whether he becomes a filmmaker or what he does, what his next step is. I'm really interested in his career because I think there are certain things about his filmmaking that are really interesting. It can be a little... Sometimes I feel like it can cross the line over into maybe like, look at me, look what I'm doing with the camera. But for the most part, I find a lot of his stuff really interesting. Like you were talking about, like we see Bill Hader watching himself as a young man, and then we see that moves into a fantasy of him being old, you know, like, that sequence is amazing. So I am really enjoying it, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next. So yeah, Mike, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that I think what Bill Hader is doing in this show is really interesting. And I'm talking about behind the camera. I mean, he's always been good in front of the camera, but like Chris said, now that he's directing everything, I don't know. It doesn't necessarily feel like the show has a different voice because he directed a little bit in season 3, and they've always kind of had this feel, but it feels, I don't know. It feels good. Like nothing else quite like it. Like Justin said, they kind of carved out this niche for themselves, and I think it really works. And I am interested to see what Bill Hader does after this show. I hope he continues directing and maybe do some movies, you know? I feel like he's a big film nerd, and you could definitely see his influences, and maybe like Chris said, maybe sometimes that's to its detriment, is because it seems like he really wants to have a unique voice, and I can see a lot of like Fellini in the, you know, like 8.5 for sure, like, you know, there's one shot in particular in the premiere that I don't think anyone who's seen 8.5 can't not think of that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this season's way darker. I'm interested to see kind of just how dark it's going to get. I do think the levity in the premiere, although I enjoyed it and it felt more like the old Barry show, it made me realize just how dark the rest of the episode was because it felt so jarring to me.
Mm-hmm.
There's one like scene in a Dave and Buster's, I think in episode 2.
Oh yeah.
That's like really ridiculous and really funny, but also like further highlights just how dark this show has gotten, I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's see what else. Oh, I will say that so far, based on the first 2 episodes, because I also have not seen the third, I will say that the Stephen Root character continues to be baffling to me. I think literally in every season of Barry so far, his allegiances flip-flop in ways that are very jarring to me. Sometimes in the span of like one episode.
Yeah.
And it seems like his character is kind of used more as a device to drive the plot sometimes, rather than like a character that I can understand, if that makes sense.
Yeah. They pretty much flip him whether or not it needs to be something that puts Barry in more potential trouble or gets him out of a situation, depending on what they need. They kind of make him, side with or against Barry, depending on that.
Yeah, and it's constantly changing.
Almost feels like him making those hairpin turns, like about his allegiance to Barry or not to Barry, is almost used for comedic effect. Like you're like, oh, he changed again. Because
Yeah.
I
will say that if the show in season 4 doesn't address that or mention it or kind of tackle that character head on in a way that the rest of the series hasn't, I won't say I won't like it, because I think it'll still be good, and I'm sure it will stick the landing. But I will be disappointed.
Yeah, I would like for that to
I would like more context to that character in general, I think.
Yeah, I would love for that to feel intentional and with a purpose that feels explained, I guess, or not just... I don't want to just end with like, okay, well, at the end of the show, they were enemies again. Like, great.
Yeah,
I want it to feel like, okay, I see. And they've done some things in some of the flashbacks, and I'll try not to be specific, just to not give any spoilers, but they've done some things that make me think that they may have some explanation to his character and the way that he is.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, and I hope you are right.
Yeah. So fingers crossed. Is this the last season, by the way? Since we're talking about... Okay. That's what I thought. I wasn't 100% sure, but...
And it feels like a final season based on the premiere, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, even this season, at the end of the 3rd season, knowing basically where we'd be at the start of this one, my thoughts were, how does this show continue even?
Yeah.
And I can only imagine we go even further into that territory. So
yeah. And these are 8-episode seasons, right?
Historically.
Yeah, it's not very many. I don't think it's all
right, so we've only got 6 left and only 5 left to air as we record this.
Yep.
Counting them down. And I'm sure we'll come back and wrap it all up as we tend to do for the shows that we all 3 watch.
Yeah. Speaking of, are we ready to do that now?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So those were our thoughts on the premiere of Barry Season 4. From here on out, we are talking about The Mandalorian Season 3. It just ended recently, so we're giving our thoughts as a whole for the season. And so, if you don't want to know anything about that and you'd rather watch the show, skip ahead in the show notes. It should be labeled. So, All right, there was your warning.
Yeah. So
okay, so who wants to kick us off?
Nuclear bomb.
Yes.
Mike, do you want to kick us off since I started out Barry and you love The Mandalorian so much?
Sure. I mean,
I don't know.
Sure.
I don't know if you do. I know you like it.
Yeah, no, I do. I mean, why not? Yeah, I have a good time with this show. So I will say that season 3 was different. I think, than season 1 and 2 of The Mandalorian. It still feels like the same show for the most part, but I would say its focus has widened.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think we can start to kind of see them moving chess pieces where they need to be to get this crossover universe going, you know? Mm-hmm. I will say that this season, I think, feels a little bit uneven in some places. And I think that comes from this idea that Jon Favreau has like this very specific storytelling style that he likes to stick with. Like the characters are archetypes. Like I think the word Din means like a pious kind of religious person, right? Other characters are called things like the Armorer. And you know, all the episode titles are like the something, right? And sometimes that really works when it's like the Mandalorian and Grogu, little baby Yoda, traveling around, getting in adventures, and things are very simple. But then the more you start to add other characters and dialogue in there, all of a sudden that sparse, like Western-style storytelling sort of feels slight.
Yeah.
Like characters don't talk to each other enough. Like there's no traditional dialogue scenes, you know, like everyone's just very to the point and it's very simple. And so I think you're starting to see season 3 kind of butt up against that because some episodes are really dialogue heavy and they're like an hour long. And then some episodes are like 25 minutes and it's very simple, you know? And I don't know. I still like it, but I would say that I think as the show grows, maybe those 20-minute episodes just maybe won't cut it like they did in season 1 and 2 when it was simpler and there was less characters. Yeah. Now, I think in season 3, we have a co-lead, which is something brand new to the show, right? We've never had someone with like almost like not equal screen time, but we have a character that's in every episode along with Din Djarin and Grogu, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think maybe you need to add a little bit more to make it feel more balanced, I think. Because now there's more going on, more characters to juggle, and that silent man with no name kind of attitude doesn't feel as satisfying week to week whenever there are like whole scenes that you're just kind of not getting, and it's kind of implied that these conversations are taking place off camera, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like we're being spoilery here, so I'll just say that like there's a lot of conversations like in the finale that just didn't happen. Like there was no goodbye between our leads that spent all season together.
Yeah.
You know, just stuff like that where it's like I'm still having a great time with the show. I think this is probably the Star Wars series that feels the most true to what Star Wars traditionally was under George Lucas, you know? But I would like a little bit longer episodes. Like, there's no reason to do 25-minute episodes and just not film a couple more dialogue scenes, you know? That's all I'm saying.
A little bit more complexity.
Not even complexity, just like characters like stating their motivations, you know, and like and where they're at and where their mindsets are, you know?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think that would go a long way. That said, I think I probably like this season more than what I've seen a lot of people react to on the internet. I still have a really great time with this show, and there's not a single episode that I've seen of it that I didn't like in some way, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I would say it's a sign that you like it if you wanted more. In a way.
Yeah. So I'll leave it there, and yeah, who wants to go next?
Chris?
Yeah, I can go. I'm pretty similar to you, Mike. I thought it was pretty. Like, I enjoyed the individual episodes, but as a whole, it was uneven. Like, it kind of stopped and started. Like you have the Doctor. What is his name? Pershing. You have and I like that episode a lot, but it just feels awkward. The whole season, like, I think maybe you kind of hit the nail on the head with the 25-minute episodes. Like, maybe if we got a little bit more time in each one, but you'd get like the doctor episode, and it would go. That one was pretty long, and then the next week would be like 20 minutes, and you're like, I don't know what to expect or what to feel here. Is kind of my takeaway. It's pretty great though, or as far as like individual moments. I had a really good time with this.
Yeah, those last 2 episodes were bangers in my opinion. I had a great time.
Yeah, I kind of almost wish they had released them as one, because I think they go well together, because just kind of flows. That is a part of the season that was not uneven. Like it kind of just continued into the other. I think I think a disappointment. Maybe this is part of the unevenness, or what makes me feel that it was uneven, was like there's this moment where Din like just gives the dark saber away, and he explains it like through this other stuff. I don't know. It just didn't feel right exactly. Like it felt like that moment needed to be more climactic, as opposed to just talking about it like a lawyer, like, I don't know. It seemed like there needed to be something more. And I think that's kind of the whole season. Like there's things that like kind of fell through the cracks and stuff. I don't know.
They make a big deal. I think it's the end of season 2, where there's the climactic scene where Luke shows up. But prior to that, they make a huge deal about how, how she's going to get the Darksaber back, because like, she can't wield it because it's Din's, and like, then for it to come up on a technicality of like, oh, by the way, that like 3 episodes ago, this scene that had nothing to do with them being in conflict with each other was how she won the Darksaber back. Just FYI. It's like,
yeah, I mean, I didn't mind that, because when that episode happened, I thought to myself, well, isn't she the rightful owner of the Darksaber now?
Yeah, that's what I thought too, and that's why
I did too.
I thought about it then, and I thought, oh, okay, well, we've moved past it, and then all of a sudden, like, wait a second, like it would have been, I don't know.
Well, I think what that episode needed was, it needed, like, or somewhere, one of the 2 episodes before that, it needed a scene where Din Djarin noticed Bo-Katan being honorable, because he doesn't value the Darksaber. He says that, right? Like, he doesn't care about it.
Yeah.
He's not concerned with wielding it. We all knew he didn't want it, and we knew she did. And I think the whole season, Bo-Katan is ingratiating herself, but not on purpose. I think she genuinely, her affection for him grows over the season. Like when it started, she was making fun of him for being in a cult.
Sure.
And she was slouching down in her chair, and telling him to
being
F off.
Grumpy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then she continues and proceeds the entire season to be heroic. But I think what we needed was, we needed to know that Din was starting to come around on her himself. We knew she was starting to come around. They did a lot of work for her.
Sure.
But I don't think there was an episode where Din, like maybe one where she could have saved Grogu or something, and he could have noticed how good she was with him. Something to make him be like, all right, now a corner has turned, and I now just think I should just, relinquish this because she earned it anyway. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's just an expectation thing. Like you expect at some point it to become an issue, and then it doesn't. Like an issue in a, as you said, Chris, a climactic way, or some sort of.
It doesn't necessarily mean that
sequence.
they have to fight either. I mean, like Mike's suggestion is reasonable. Something along those lines, something climactic. Whereas opposed to they're like, oh, well, 3 weeks ago this happened, but I've been carrying it around anyways. I don't know. It needed to happen in that episode as opposed to.
There is an argument to be said that Din understands this, and if he relinquishes it when no one witnesses it and says that you defeated the thing that defeated me, here you go, Bo-Katan, and then Din Djarin's still walking around hanging out with her, they're going to be like, aren't you guys supposed to fight for this thing? What are you doing?
Sure.
You just showed up with it.
And that makes sense.
So I think there's an argument to be said that he understands that he has to say, I was defeated in front of all these Mandalorians and her ass had to save me for it to have any sort of impact. Like, because,
Sure.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with you, but I don't agree with the execution of it. I do think that he needed to say it in front of everybody in order for it to be a big deal, but there needed to be, it needed maybe to happen in the same episode, or I don't know exactly, but it just felt wrong. It felt uneven. And that's, I think, that's what, to me, and I'll let you go, Justin, but to me, that defines the whole season and how it kind of didn't fit together. So yes, that's that all being said, I enjoy each week, sitting down and watching the episode. My mom this morning texted me about 1 million Instagram videos of Grogu and Din Djarin. So it's just a really exciting thing for my mom and for anyways. So it's a lot of fun. It just felt uneven this season. So, Justin, what did you think?
I mean, overall, I enjoyed it. I don't know. I used to think before I watched a ton of the Star Wars stuff that like Mandalorian was awesome and like maybe some of my favorite Star Wars back in like season 1, season 2.
Sure.
Maybe now it might be like in terms of like the series and stuff more towards the bottom. Not that it's bad, because I pretty much like all Star Wars stuff. I think I just, something about the season, just when it was over, there was a bit of that's it for me, and maybe I just expected to have something a bit more on the level of like Luke showing up and taking Grogu away, and maybe it's also because I know there's more coming, and the way this season ends feels like the end of the show, and to know there's more coming it feels like it's wrapped everything up nicely and there's nothing to really like hold on to, I guess. But I know there is, so like I can't really hold on to that feeling of nothing to hold on to.
Sure.
And these are minor complaints, because like overall I think like we got some of the best action we've ever gotten in Star Wars.
Yeah.
In this season. I love returning to Bo-Katan and like kind of rounding out her character. And I don't know if we're finished with her. I doubt it.
On contrary, I think this whole season was getting that chess piece where she needed to be.
Yeah, maybe that's the problem with the season, is that they were trying to set the table for more to come.
Well, Kathleen Kennedy said that once Gina Carano got fired, and I don't know if she was actually going to be in this show, but Kathleen Kennedy did say at one point that what was going to be Rangers of the New Republic has been folded into the other shows.
Yeah.
And there are, I think at least 2 episodes that feel like potential Rangers of the New Republic area territory, I think, that maybe took time away from the central conflict, but, maybe not. But
yeah.
But at the end of the day, I think once Ahsoka comes out and we get closer to that movie, I think it'll all start to make sense, because then you're going to have people like Boba Fett. He has his own little area where he's got some minions he can summon. Bo-Katan's now in a position where like these people can be called on for help. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When a big conflict happens, and they can bring substantial fighting forces with them. So I think that's what it is, right? This is Bo-Katan's Book of Boba Fett, kind of.
Yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense.
Way more Bo-Katan centric, which, brings me to something I enjoyed once we got, kind of the end scenes of the season where Grogu becomes Din Grogu, and Din Djarin adopts him, and he becomes an official Mandalorian. And I really enjoyed that the show's now made me rethink the title, because the Mandalorian was Din Djarin, and now it could be Bo-Katan, it could be Grogu, It's like it's
and
like
it
the
could
Sopranos.
change a few times.
It's like the Sopranos, who's the soprano in this? Is it who can sing the highest, right?
There you go.
That's what the Sopranos was about. You're right.
Now it could be multiple people.
Yeah. I think I agree. I do think this season was worth it just for Grogu running around in TK. What is his name? What is the robot's name?
It was IG-11, and then they call it IG-12, even
Yeah.
though I don't think that's how droids work with their naming
Well,
conventions.
I don't care. I want more Grogu hitting the yes and no buttons, running around, making a mess. That's cinema, as Martin Scorsese defines it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like part of my review is based on it as, or part of my like hesitations, like minor criticisms are based on looking at as like a season of television as a piece of the Star Wars whole. But there's a lot of stuff going on that's, I think, really great and going to be awesome in the grand scheme of things.
We got Hux's dad, which is like a character that I've been waiting for, because I read a book a long time ago, or a couple books with Brindle Hux, and I just never thought we'd see the day where he was a character played by Donald Gleason's brother, which is awesome.
That's
It's pretty fun.
We got some live action. What's his name from Rebels? Why am I blanking on his name? No.
Oh, Zeb.
Zeb.
Oh yeah.
Not Thrawn. We haven't got live action Thrawn yet.
Yeah, I didn't think
Yeah.
so. But
And it did some great world building. Like now, when you watch the sequels and The Force Awakens happens and the First Order blows up the government, you have a reference point as to what that government was like now.
The New Republic sucks.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
So what happens in the grand scheme of Star Wars is after they defeat the Empire, Mon Mothma moves to demilitarize the New Republic. I guess to overcompensate for the military attitude of the Empire, right? And as the overcorrection goes, they become wildly inefficient. And you see that here. Like, it checks out with all the books that I've read and like the video games that I've played. So like just seeing that cohesion, like as a Star Wars fan, I think this season of The Mandalorian was actually pretty great.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm trying to put on my normal person hat, it's a little uneven, but I think even less so than Chris is making out, or you. I honestly think it's still pretty darn enjoyable.
Yeah,
I do too. I don't want to sound like I don't enjoy it. I do. I think it's great.
And hot take here. I like Jack Black and Lizzo, even though Lizzo can't act.
Oh yeah,
that was
they were fun.
I know there's an internet thing going on about those that episode, but I enjoyed that episode. You know,
I enjoyed a lot of cameos. Like even having Tim Meadows do his Tim Meadows thing in whatever episode that was.
3.
Tim Meadows is good as an inefficient bureaucrat.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like how, like, as soon as he comes in, like, that dude's just not looking to work.
Yeah.
I think, and all my negative opinions, I think, come from viewing this season as a whole. Whereas I enjoyed episode to episode, even though the setups and the payoffs weren't quite there. So there were moments, because in that episode, the Bo-Katan Axe Wove fight was pretty fun. I thought that was a fun episode, even though that moment didn't pay off, you know. So
Yeah.
I think I just missed something to carry me over to the next season. You know, that thing to like
That's true, the
to
cliffhanger.
end on.
Well,
yeah, the cliffhanger. Just go ahead.
You get 2 more shows this year, setting place concurrently. You get Ahsoka,
Yeah.
and you get Skeleton Crew, and they did give a tease at the end of season 4 as of to what Din will be up to. And I think that was actually a pretty good setup, and it has me excited for where it's going.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's going to be doing bounty hunters for, like, Imperial remnants. So that's going to be in a situation to put him, like, right into the thick of things, where, like, his adventures will potentially move the greater plot forward, you know?
Right. Yeah. That's what I think. Once there's more to come after, you know, I think it'll feel a lot better. Not that it feels bad. It's hard to
I
make
also
complaints
think
without
that,
sounding like you don't like things, because I do like it.
Sure. Well, I also think that it's one of those things where I think maybe with this particular season, watching them in closer succession with one another, like you could binge them or watch one a day or whatever, but not waiting a week after like the 25-minute episode, or a week after we spend an hour with Pershing, you know?
Sure.
I think maybe those things will feel less frustrating in the grand scheme of things. But anyways, anything else we want to say about The Mandalorian season 3?
No, I think I'm good.
I think I'm good as well.
Okay, so Beau is Afraid. Here we go, starting now.
I am so sorry for what your daddy passed down to you. But I wanted a child, the greatest gift of my life.
I'm visiting my mother tomorrow.
Hi, Carrot. It's Mom. I'm just calling to say that I'm so excited to see you tomorrow. You're my angel, and I love you. Okay. I love you. Okay, bye, sweetie. I love you.
Are you at the airport?
I'm on my way. It's not safe, is it? What do you think I should do?
I'm sure you'll do the right thing, sweetheart.
Welcome back.
I hit you with my car.
What?
I know.
What was this?
That's my little assistant health monitor. Feeling sad about going home, Beau? Must feel totally unreal.
I'm supposed to be leaving.
I don't know if that's gonna happen.
You will walk many miles. Dozens will become hundreds. Hundreds will become thousands. Your adventures will continue for years and years.
I just need to get home.
I know.
Do you want the truth now?
All right, so as always with our newer films, we will be doing a spoiler-free section up front where we give our general thoughts and opinions on Beau is Afraid, and we'll give you a warning, a spoiler alert. We'll play a little bumper so that you have plenty of time to pause the podcast before we get into spoilers. Go watch Beau is Afraid, come back and finish listening to the episode.
That's right. So, Beau is Afraid was directed by Ari Aster. It stars Joaquin Phoenix, Patti LuPone, Amy Ryan, Nathan Lane, and Parker Posey. The IMDb synopsis says, following the sudden death of his mother, a mild-mannered but anxiety-ridden man confronts his darkest fears as he embarks on an epic Kafkaesque odyssey back home. I couldn't read the word Kafkaesque.
Should be a dash in there.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Anyways.
I don't know.
Yeah, so who wants to kick us off on this movie? Chris, you saw it first. Why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, I saw it first, so I'm Googling Kafkaesque just to make sure.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that'll make for great podcast content.
Yeah, so just hang on for 30 seconds. No. Man, I saw this movie, I guess it was opening day. It was my day off, so it just kind of worked out that way. What a crazy movie. This is...
All right, Mike, you're up.
Yeah. Ari Aster, so we'll start off with Ari Aster. Ari Aster, I feel like, we is also one of those, there's a few directors that are, for me, intertwined with this podcast. I mean, Ari Aster's never been on the podcast, has never even heard of it, but I feel like I found Ari Aster while doing this podcast, and I have continued to be able to watch him, make movies. This is the third one, and that is and get to talk to you guys about every time he makes one. So that is really exciting and special to me to talk to you guys and watch these things grow. This movie kind of reminds me of Babylon, because I feel like it's a director swinging for the fences. I don't know if it always works, but it's always something. Especially in this movie, it's always something unique, something different than what you would normally see. This movie is oppressive and nightmarish, but it's also incredibly darkly funny. I did not have enough time or like the computer to freeze frame stuff, but I am sure there is a lot of jokes and a lot of background stuff that I missed. That would make the movie even better, or the details of the movie even better. I'm still not exactly sure. Like, I don't know that I would recommend this to anybody except for like you guys. I don't know if anybody. Do you know anybody in your life that you would recommend this movie to?
No. Well,
yeah. I don't
think I've got some enemies.
It'll be really interesting. That's the other thing. Neither one of you guys like rated this on Letterboxd yet, so I don't know what you guys think. So that'll be interesting to see. But man, this is a wacky movie. There are sections of the movie where I was like, wait, what are we doing? Weren't we over here doing something? Like, when do we get back there? But then it's like, it's just going on an adventure, Anyways, so I don't know who I'd recommend this movie to. Mike, what do you think?
Okay, well, let's see. I enjoyed this movie.
Okay.
Now, if you would have asked me that question right after I walked out of the theater, then I don't think I'd have been able to tell you what I thought.
We've had a string of these movies, haven't we?
Yeah.
Recently.
So personally, I recommend sitting on this movie for a bit after watching it before deciding. There's a lot to unpack. So yeah, I did like it. That said, I don't know that I liked it as much as Hereditary or Midsommar.
Sure.
And I wouldn't be shocked if I end up liking this more than a lot of people I know.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine that this has lots of, or any, mainstream appeal at all. Yeah, but the movie's wild. Joaquin Phoenix is really great consistently throughout the movie, I think. It's very over the top while being very personal. I don't know what I'm going to rate it on Letterboxd yet, but I liked it more than I didn't. And there's some pretty crazy things in this movie, and there's a couple times where I laughed quite a bit. Because
I felt
it's
guilty
just
for laughing.
What you're seeing is so outrageous. So, yeah, I can comfortably say that I didn't love it, though. So, yeah. That's kind of where I'm coming from. So, Justin, what do you think?
Yeah, as far as Ari Aster goes, I feel like Hereditary was a bit more of a straightforward horror movie. Obviously, it's doing it incredibly well, but I think it's, kind of a shadowy, a lot of nighttime, sort of spooky horror movie. And when I saw Midsommar, what I thought was so cool about that was it was this sort of daytime bright horror movie. So we have kind of the nighttime horror movie, the daytime horror movie, and this movie is basically it's neither. It's more like the horror movie that is all inside your head.
Sure.
Like the mental horror movie that just kind of like emotionally torments you rather than puts you in any sort of suspense. And I think that's really cool. Like I like what he's done here. In some ways, it's very much like a Charlie Kaufman film. It's got heavy Synecdoche, New York, and I'm thinking of Ending Things kind of vibes. And it's probably to each their own whether or not you feel that it's borrowing too heavily from what Kaufman does. I don't know. For me, it's certainly influenced and it's in the same ballpark, but I think this manages to be funnier and maybe even at times more outrageous in a silly way. Like you said, Mike, sometimes you're laughing out loud at outrageous things. Like I laughed at things that I think were supposed to be funny, things that were jokes, but then sometimes you're just laughing in disbelief.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know that Kaufman ever really goes there, but I think it's really hard to not think of that sort of thing when you're thinking of this movie.
Sure.
And I love Charlie Kaufman stuff. Like, the movies that he's directed, like I didn't love all of them immediately when I watched them. Sometimes it took me a second viewing or sitting on them for a while. So this film really felt up my alley. Like from probably the first like 15 minutes, I felt like, okay, I kind of was already in the camp of like, I like this movie and I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt until it does something that, absolutely forces me to change my opinion, and it never did. I enjoyed it pretty much the whole way through. I think it's really fascinating and one that is, I think it's impossible to catch everything that's going on in one sitting. Like I immediately know that I need to watch this movie again to really grasp all the things that are there. And I think it's all there because Ari Aster in general, with all of his films, they're made so meticulously in terms of both like performance and dialogue and staging, set design, that I kind of feel like everything means something, a bit like how I felt back when we reviewed Under the Silver Lake.
Yeah,
sure. There's some of that in here too. But despite all that, the thing I heard going into the movie was a lot of people walking out saying like, what the heck did I just watch? Like, what was that? And at some levels I understand that.
Sure.
But I found it to be a lot less cryptic than I expected. Or at least like, I feel like I mostly get it. I think there's a lot of stuff to look at and go, oh, okay, I didn't catch that. And that is this. And that's fun. And that maybe helps fill out some more stuff. But like on the whole, I don't think this movie is as like impenetrable as I had kind of heard. If that makes sense.
It's not David Lynch, yeah.
It's not like Inland Empire, yeah.
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 Although it's close. I mean, I think there are aspects of it that are similar to David Lynch, but yes, go.
Yeah. But I enjoyed the mood. I enjoyed the tone, the set design. Like when he's just like in his neighborhood at the beginning of the movie before he actually like kind of sets out from that area, I was enamored. I thought that was genius and incredible. This sort of world. It's like, what if like all your worst fears manifested themselves into reality and you had to live in that world? And also you were afraid of literally everything, it's like, and I won't get any deeper than this, but like, it's like if the nightly news that is like trying to keep you afraid all the time actually was right and everything was out to harm you and kill you and get you, and kill your kids or whatever. Like if all of that existed, that's kind of the world that we start this film in. And I thought it was really amazing. And then it takes some turns from there that I have lesser and varying opinions on, but still overall, I think it's great. Execution wise, if not like, I agree that like, I don't necessarily love it, but I think that there will be people who do, because I maybe there's flaws in it, but I find it hard to look at the movie as flawed as just things that, maybe I just don't connect with on a level that's going to make me love it.
Yeah,
there's a lot in there.
I think with me, I was really enjoying it and nothing really happened to make me stop enjoying it. I think I just started to run out of steam.
Yeah, it's
like,
it's not dull. It's not like there's no lulls. Like it's a long movie. I had to pee at one point, and I think I chose the perfect point too, because if I had gone to the restroom at any other point, I think I would have been pretty mad at myself.
Right.
We can talk about where I peed during spoilers if you want, but we also don't have to.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So, anything we need to tackle in non-spoilers, or should we just kind of get into it?
Let's get into it. I always enjoy that.
Let's get into it. I think I avoided trailers, and I'm so glad I did. Like, the less you know about this movie, if you have not seen it, the better.
But man, I watched the trailer, at least one of them, and I was still not prepared. I don't know if you've seen a trailer since, but like I was still not prepared for what was coming at me. You know, like this movie still went to places that I was not expecting. So,
yeah, I could see like maybe just giving a warning that like if you struggle with anxiety, I can't imagine this movie being an enjoyable experience, because like I to an extent, I think most people have some anxiety, and I do, but this movie makes you more anxious, I think, and kind of toys with that.
But not like in the Uncut Gems kind of way.
That's true. That's stressful as opposed to...
that's like suspenseful anxious. This is like, and I don't know, in a similar way that like Men was like, I think would be difficult for like and I've heard it's difficult for women to watch, you know, who have that fear of men for one reason or another. And I just feel like this is like so anxiety inducing, just even to the sound design.
I'm not sure that this is meant to be an enjoyable watch. I think Ari Aster would be disappointed if you walked away being like, man, I had a great time at this movie.
Yeah.
But
hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. Okay, but yeah, that was my only thing to squeeze in before spoilers.
All right, so spoilers for Beau is Afraid, starting now.
No, I guess Rosebud is just a piece in a jigsaw puzzle.
Any orange cigarettes you got up there? I'll tell you all about it.
Things are going to start happening to me now.
And here we go.
All right. That giant penis, huh?
Yeah, how about that?
Just kidding. I don't know if we want to go there. It's the obvious place.
Yeah, well,
no, I'm just kidding.
You've already brought us there, so what are your thoughts?
Man, when the giant penis showed up, that was when I laughed for sure. And like that disbelief, like I know it's not necessarily funny, and it's amidst a scene that is, in what it reveals, is pretty horrifying. But
what do you take it? What do you take the meaning of the penis to be?
I mean, I took it in some ways as representing his dad, because his dad wasn't ever there and was essentially just for both him and his mom was like just the thing that planted a seed inside of his mom and then died immediately. Right? Like,
yeah,
like those, I don't know, like the things that die right after. It's like, that's your purpose, right? Like, the spiders that like eat their mates after they get impregnated by them or whatever.
Well, do you believe her with that story that he died immediately, or is that like one big ploy to convince Beau that it's not safe to have affections elsewhere other than his mother?
Oh, it's definitely a ploy, but I mean, how much of this world that we live in is manifested from her psychological like fear and trauma that she's put into him about everything.
Right.
So yeah, is it did he really die that way? No, I don't think so. But is it a manifestation of Joaquin Phoenix growing up and spending the majority of his life thinking that's all his dad did?
Right.
For him? Sure. We jumped straight into the end there.
I mean, that's not even like the end. I mean, like, I don't feel like, I mean, that's part of it, sure, but
yeah,
like, I don't think that's like the key to unlocking the movie.
No,
you know?
And I appreciate its over the topness, and it made me laugh, but like, if it wasn't in there, I might even, I don't know, I might be able to recommend this to one or two more other people.
If there wasn't a giant penis in it
that gets stabbed over and over and over.
Oh yeah.
Or the balls do.
I think the first time that I kind of laughed out loud, and maybe not the first time, but the first time I remember laughing out loud in the movie was whenever he like props the door open to run across the street to like the convenience store, and then like every homeless person on the street like
goes in.
Yeah, like finds the door open and wanders into his building,
into his apartment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just so, it's almost like everywhere he goes, it's like the thing he fears the most that could happen will probably happen to him.
Mm-hmm.
It's like his anxieties are manifesting this.
Because even like the water thing with the new drug that he gets prescribed in the beginning, it's made such a big deal of like take with water. And of course, what happens the first time he goes to take it is that the water in the building's out. It's like
right.
All of these things come real and exist. And manifest themselves, as you said, which is fascinating. I love the world. Like I was just obsessed with like that area right outside his house and him just like sprinting home to try to like beat that like tattooed,
having to sleep outside as he watches everybody in his his apartment.
I laughed out loud when he woke up the next morning. And he just was like covered in sawdust, and there was someone standing next to him just doing construction and not bothering him.
Didn't even shoo him away.
Yeah. This movie, I think, like just talking about it, this little bit is like, this movie's hilarious. But I felt so uncomfortable laughing while watching the movie because it's so anxiety inducing. You're like, should I be laughing? You know, like you're like, is this the appropriate response that I should be having? It's pretty hilarious.
I hope no one else in the theater thinks I'm laughing at the movie, or I think I'm laughing with it. But
I don't
want to be that guy.
Parker Posey. Well, the Nathan Lane. What's the girl's name?
Amy Ryan.
Amy Ryan. Amy Ryan's great. First off, she was in The Office. Second, she was in The Wire. So Amy Ryan's great.
Nathan Lane's great.
Nathan Lane is great, but not as good as Amy Ryan.
I've been watching him a lot in his character in Modern Family. Pepper Saltzman. I don't know if you guys have watched that.
No. I don't. If I did, I don't remember it. But
he's pretty wonderful. I mean, it's what he does. It's like a big flamboyant gay character.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But it's great.
But Parker Posey, I think, kind of takes the cake, and I think got the biggest laugh. I don't know, and it's funny that we're talking about this movie about biggest laughs or whatever. But there's a moment, like.
Well, I mean, I think it's a comedy. I don't think it's that weird.
Yeah, I think so too.
It is. It's a very sadistic, dark, surreal comedy.
Sure, and that's why I almost think it's like. He may be drinking from the same sources like Charlie Kaufman does, but I don't know that he's like necessarily aping Kaufman. Like I think they're like at the same well, or maybe even like Kaufman's part of the well, and he's just. But I think there's more to it than just being similar to Kaufman. Anyways, but that joke about her, she's like, I really felt that one. It's so funny. Yeah. And then immediately after, like he has this like release, this emotional release. He's so relieved that he didn't die when he had sex, and then she did. It's just it's sadistically funny. And
well, yeah, it's like this grand plan. Like everything's a grand plan from his mom to like emotionally manipulate him, like down to his therapist, to his like the people that hit him with the car, like even the stuff he has in his apartment to eat, I think is like from her like company or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like he's never been out of her shadow or out from under her wing at all, and he understands this, and she permeates everything into his life, and he's appropriately scared. So it's like, yeah, like he's even scared to like find connections with another human being, because if he does have sex, he's scared he'll die.
Yeah.
And so I think it's so funny that like he didn't, but then like again, his worst fear, like the next worst thing happened besides him dying. The
person he's doing it with dies. Yeah. That's great. So do we all agree that everything was manufactured? Like Nathan Lane, Amy Ryan, their family hitting him, taking him in, was all like a test or a torture.
I think his greatest fear is that that's what his mother is doing to him, and I think whether it actually is happening or he manifested it into happening, I think his worst fear ultimately becomes realized whenever, like, she's behind everything, right? Like, he can't be an independent person at all.
Well, I think it's two things I think that made me think that, that she's behind it all. And I guess it is an interesting point of whether or not is she behind it all because he, subliminally deep down maybe thinks she would do that, something like that, or is it genuine? But two things. One, when he's looking at the picture of her that's made up of a bunch of pictures of employees, and he sees Elaine Parker Posey there. Nathan Lane is also in there. I don't know if you guys saw him.
No.
Well, don't they say something like, you failed the stupid test or whatever? Like, I think it's all I think we are to believe that it's all the mother, right?
Yeah, I think in the end.
I think it's that essential, and I don't think this is, I think this is obvious to point out, right? Like, you always hear about, like, the controlling Jewish moms.
Yeah.
I think this is, like, that writ large.
Yeah, and they're Jewish as
I think Ari Aster's Jewish, and I think so. The character is supposed to be. It's like it's like him.
Wasserman.
Yeah.
And well, even when he comes up to the house and he's late for the funeral, the catering company is called Some Clever Play on Shiva.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I could remember it because it made me laugh out loud. It was like Bob's Burgers intro where the pest control van with a clever punny name.
Have you seen the most recent Bob's Burgers?
No, I'm like 12 episodes behind. I'm letting that show. I'm letting it build up so we have some to like binge.
Sure. They had the best one so far. It was the Criterion collection.
Yeah, Critter area.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
Criterion. Yeah.
Criterion collection. Yeah, I did see the still frame of that.
Oh, okay.
Which was great. But anyways, so I saw Nathan Lane's character pictured under the employees. So that was this is before we even know his mom is not dead.
Yeah.
So that was like my first hint. And then thinking back after the movie was over, in the bumpers for like the studio bumper logos at the beginning, the final one is the logo of the company,
MW?
The mom's company, the MW thing, which I thought was weird at the time. And I just noticed it because it was just the logo and it didn't actually say the film company name.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, oh, what is that? And then throughout the movie, I started seeing it. But if this was all a manufactured by her / her company, then like it makes sense for that label to be at the beginning of the movie. Just like, this is a product of her.
Well, her products are everywhere throughout the movie.
Yeah, it's all over the place.
So it's like, even if you don't subscribe to the theory that she literally crafted it all, because I think to dissect this movie literally is a fool's errand, but
probably
regardless of any of that, I think what you can easily and comfortably take away from the movie based on all that stuff is that he's never in his life been away from her.
Yeah.
Like, she's seeped into every aspect of his life, even if it's not true. He's paranoid that his therapist works for his mom. Yeah, he's paranoid that the people that hit him with the car will then tell his mom that he didn't beg them to go to her funeral fast enough. Like, I think
there's a theory where this all happens.
He fears that it might be true.
Yeah.
And whether or not it literally is at the end, he manifests it in his brain. So in his brain, it is true.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I think there is a reading of this film where it's all taking place in his head. This is all his anxieties. This is the way he looks at the world, and it's his head, as opposed to the real world or whatever. There's a possibility that he wakes up at the end of this movie and his mom is a perfectly nice person. It's just his anxiety about everything is pretty bad.
Yeah, I like that even in the afterlife, if you want to call it that, like after he goes to the little tunnel and at the very, very end and he ends up in that sort of like tribunal. or whatever.
I really like that
That
sequence.
scene was great. Yeah. I love that. But just the idea that even when he's moved on and she's dead, like in the afterlife, whenever it comes time to be judged or whatever, which is what I kind of took that as, like, it's going to be his mother.
Yeah.
And someone defending his mother, telling him how horrible of a son he was.
I loved his lawyer just way off in the distance, or whatever he was, the guy defending him.
The defendant, yeah. Because he was like, he didn't have, the other guy has like a microphone and he's clearly mic'd up and everyone can hear him, and the other guy's just yelling with no assistance.
A really cool thing about that sequence too, because there's all these people, like sitting there in the audience with him, or not with him, but like judging him as well. And it's almost a mirror as to what we're doing, and they're like all moving around. And I don't know. I think that sequence itself it's just really great. There's more to it than some of the rest of the movie has. I don't know. I just really like the idea of that mirror of looking at these other people judging him. They're basically watching the movie too,
Yeah. Well, it plays out under the end credits too, right? Everybody getting up and walking out.
Yeah,
us in the theater are doing.
Yeah, I loved it. I love that sequence, and I think one of our biggest Inland Empire is one of our biggest disagreements. I really liked that movie at the time because it was so weird and so wacky, and I don't know that I'd recommend it to anybody else. I know you guys didn't like it as much. But that's kind of the same thing I'm feeling here. Is like, I don't know who I would ever recommend this to, but I loved it, and I may be alone in it. It sounds like I'm with you guys, but yeah, I really enjoyed this movie.
Yeah, and so is this movie, I guess, primarily solely focused on being about, a son and his, I would say, I blame the mother, right? Like psychologically abusive and like trauma-inducing mother.
Well, we did see him get born, and it seems like from birth he was having a pretty bad time.
He got dropped.
Yeah, but also the second he's born, within, I swear, a half second of him coming out, his mother is yelling, "Why isn't he crying? What's wrong with him?"
Well, because they dropped him. Wasn't that why? They dropped him like fairly soon. She's like, "Why is it? What's going on? What happened?"
But I feel like that overprotective, like,
yeah, like coming out of the womb, he was already disappointing her.
Yeah, yes, sure. and she was already worried that something was wrong with him and that he was gonna, the harm had befallen him and that he was gonna die or something, right? Like, and that's, to me, there's the disappointed mother aspect that's pretty clear, but also the overprotective mother is what's put him in like the state of like the world, like his neighborhood, and being afraid of everything and paranoid. Feels like an extension of the, like, if you have sex, you're going to die the first time you finish, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also it feels like there's a lot more of that, like, don't let a brown recluse spider bite you because it'll, put a big hole into your neck or whatever, or like, there's a crazy man stabbing people on the news. You got to watch out for crazy men stabbing people.
Naked crazy men. The police, will shoot you.
The I'm going to go out on a limb, but like the guy who's just wearing jean shorts that's dancing, like, I'm going to say, like,
yeah,
a gay person on the street, would maybe be something that would offend his mom or something, like these sort of, I don't know, fears. And I was thinking about that a lot. And at first I thought the movie was maybe going towards that, like, this is a world that, like, if, like I said earlier, like if the nightly news were true.
Sure.
Or, well, not that it's untrue necessarily, but if it was as bad as the news and people want to make you believe it is out there, it's why, like, so many people think like Chicago is just like the worst city in the world, right? And it's not necessarily.
Yeah.
Is it Detroit or Chicago the one that's always brought up as like Democrat havens that are like crime-ridden, lawless hellholes.
Yeah,
I think Portland is that way, portrayed that way amongst like anti-Democrat people.
Sure.
Not to get
you
into
mean
that,
conservatives?
But like, yeah.
That's the easy way to say it.
Sure. Not to get into that necessarily, but just like if that were true, that's the world I thought we were kind of going into. But is there that in there, or is it? Are we to focus on the mother?
Well, I think the mother is a super large presence that was put in there strategically throughout the movie in ways to where like and the way it ends is like I think that's important.
Yeah.
Because in my opinion, she did that damage. Like I don't get the vibe that he's like a 24-hour news watching kind of guy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think he's just got severe anxiety based on the unbalanced upbringing he's had. And maybe a little bit of, that's just who he is. But whenever your mother has like remember she, like as soon as he starts to get like affection with like that, with the girl on the boat,
mm-hmm.
she comes up with a defensive strategy to shut that down.
Yeah. Do you think that's why the daughter of Nathan Lane and Amy Ryan, do you think that's why she's so crazy? Like, just off the wall because, like, his mother seemed to hate, probably hate any girl he was interested in, Like, her reaction whenever the girl comes in and kisses him on the boat as a kid, like, whenever they're going to leave, she's
Mm-hmm.
going to leave. Like the mother sees it and she's like, "What are you doing? What's going on?" She's like freaking out.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just wondering, does that manifest itself in the actions of the teenage girl with like the like being really like horrifically into drugs and
maybe
and psycho and drinking paint?
I look at it as a couple different ways. I look at it as she's having her own shitty parents' upbringing, right? And she's dealing with it the best way she knows how. Or, like everything else in this world, Beau is afraid of teenage girls because they can be mean.
Well, his mom maybe taught him to be afraid of them.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It is just like, I think him just being uncomfortable around people, especially outspoken young people who he probably doesn't ever see. I think she just terrifies him. And so she's like the caricature of a rebellious, angry teenager.
And she's in various states of dress too. I mean, she's never naked in the movie, but she's like in a bra and like, so like it's all things that would make him uncomfortable.
Right.
So
yeah. Well, even the vet guy that's like living in the RV attached to their house or whatever,
right
next to their house, he's a bit of a caricature of like PTSD veteran.
Yeah,
sure.
Like a tough, unhinged army man.
Yeah.
Well, he doesn't like him.
He's literally like enacting fighting the war against like invisible soldiers, right? At one point.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this extreme version.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why she might be messed up is because they care more for her fallen brother and his, her fallen brother's comrades. So they're just bringing people in off the street and adopting them.
But see, I very much look at it more as like these are like they could be perfectly reasonable people, but I think these are just the fears in his brain, and that's what he's seeing. He's seeing the worst version of what could possibly be.
We're seeing everything through his eyes. I would agree with that.
Yes, but I'm also not sure it's worth dissecting any of these characters as characters with their own like motivations, because what they're doing is all him, a piece of him. Like it's not about I don't know if they necessarily have their own motivations as much as they are
this could all
consequences of his life.
Interesting.
Sure.
Yeah. Go ahead. I was just going to ask, could you imagine if you had made this movie? I mean, obviously there's a theme in Ari Aster's, at least two of his three movies, like motherhood is, he obviously, and this destruction of family, but like, could you imagine taking this, your mom watching this film? You're like, Mom, this isn't really about you.
Yeah. It's like that episode of Home Improvement where the one kid takes a filmmaking class and he makes a horror film where he kills his whole family. And so then the whole family's freaked out by him for like the whole episode.
I've never seen that, but that sounds hilarious.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. It's pretty good.
That'd be tough.
If that show's still good, I don't know. I watched it as a kid, but I saw that episode a bunch. But anyways, I thought about that. Like, what is his relationship with his mother?
I mean, a lot of people have. I think that's the easiest. After, Hereditary and this movie, you're like, ooh, I don't know what's going on with him. I think that there are... The mother is an easy way of, like, making these anxieties real. I don't know that he necessarily has a bad relationship with his mother. Like I've seen tweets and stuff about like, oh, I have a good relationship with my mother, so this isn't good for me. Well, you know what? Like, this movie wasn't made for me. Anyways, I think it's silly, but that'd be interesting to know more about Ari Aster's personal life. Yeah, but also maybe not.
Yeah. So how does the theater troupe that he encounters in the woods and that whole segment, which was, again, once that place goes through, I really enjoyed that. I thought that was cool. But we can talk about that, but we can also want to talk about how does that fit into his manifestations, like, or is that part of his mother's plan too?
Well, that's when it shows his desire for a family, maybe. Also, but it's revealed to him that his dad is still alive, perhaps.
Well, I think
I don't know if I believe that 100%. Anyways,
yeah.
I think it's him fantasizing, and even in his fantasy, he's aware that it's something that he can't ever really have.
Yeah, I didn't know if we were getting biblical with like the flood.
It's kind of like a what if situation, and even in the what if, they're like, you didn't have kids, and you probably couldn't, and never really will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so I think it's just
how
like,
did you ever have kids without having, if you've never been with a woman?
Right.
That was funny.
So I think it's just sort of him, in some roundabout way, confronting a deep sadness or a not even a deep sadness, but this thing that he never attempted and it never happened.
Yeah.
Right. It's just an aspect of life that he will never and never got to experience. And I think that's sort of him not necessarily crying about it, but wrestling with it throughout the course of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he also loses the family and spends most of his life searching for one. So, I mean, is he searching for one? Is that his desire? Is that what's motivating him, is to want to have a family, even though no matter how hard he looks, he can't have one because he thinks he can't have sex? I don't know.
Or is it, even if he had found love and a family, something bad would have just happened anyways and taken it away? Mm-hmm. Like, there was no happy ending possible.
That's also... There's a lot here.
Yeah.
Over the last, since I've seen this movie, there's several times where I'm like, I really want to see this movie again, but I don't necessarily want to sit down for 3 hours. I wish I worked at the movie theater and I could just pop in for like a half hour, or an hour, because I don't want to sit down and watch the whole thing again. It's like arduous.
I just like to be able to pause it and take a break to go to the bathroom or whatever, split it up over 2 nights if need be, but at least like have that ability to pause it and not, I don't know. In some ways I found myself distracted of trying to figure out what a good time to go to the bathroom was, which by the way, I went after he ran away, and was in the woods.
Okay. Right before he got to the...
That's when I left, and I came back right when he first sees, the pregnant woman with the light. So I think I just missed him walking through the woods.
I think so.
Which is okay with me for now.
That sequence with him in the woods, the play, I think if I just watch that sequence there, that's worth it. That was so well done. There's a lot of really great segments in this movie, and it's very episodic, the movie itself. But yeah, I really
much like an Odyssey. if you will.
Yes. Who would have thought?
And I didn't know if we were pulling in any religious trauma with that too, because his family and everything gets destroyed by a flood. I think it's kind of hard to not make biblical connections.
That's possible.
Yeah, I haven't really thought about anything like that. I'm sure there are.
Yeah. Doesn't seem overly concerned with it, but I just think there might be some religious anxieties in there, such as the short shorts man dancing, and that, and the like fear of sex. I guess maybe it's just based too much on my own like personal experiences, but those things all immediately make me think of like religious trauma.
Yeah. I mean, he's certainly got trauma. I read it more as trauma from his mother rather than trauma from like a religious guilt.
Yeah, but the religion would be funneled through his mother to him is kind of.
Oh, right. Yeah, I guess so.
Thoughts.
Yeah, fair enough.
So yeah, I'm not thinking necessarily different than you. I'm just wondering how much more religious stuff might be in there that I'm not picking up on.
Yeah, I'm also not Jewish,
so
I probably wouldn't catch some more subtle stuff that might be sprinkled in there.
Yeah, some of the differences. Between Judaism and Christianity, I wouldn't necessarily know either, other than the Shiva catering pun.
Yeah, I know what Shiva is.
Yeah. Anything else to talk about? Did we talk about the end sequence enough with his mother?
I think we did. I mean, there's always more to talk about if someone has something, but I'm tapped out.
Yeah, sometimes you have to put a pin in it because, I mean, I think we're close to an hour and a half.
Yeah, it's like half the time of the movie.
Yeah. So,
well, yeah,
we've been
going.
Yeah. But maybe we should just stop and let people make their own choices.
Yeah, right.
Decisions.
We can read stuff on the air if you have any ideas about this film, or if we missed something completely. It's unlikely that we missed anything, but go ahead and write in if you think we should.
That never happens. Yeah. We've never done that before.
We literally said everything that happens in this whole entire movie.
Yeah.
Guarantee it. Oh, I loved the girls' room that he was staying in when he was with Nathan Lane, with like all the fake like K-pop and like teenage girl stuff. Just a caricature of like a teen girl and like the type of stuff that they might be into. Is caricatured. The setting is caricatured too.
Yeah. I like how he kept refusing. He's like, I don't have to sleep in your room. I'll sleep on the couch.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. It's great. Okay. That was it. Now I am tapped out.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Anything else, or does that do it for this episode?
I think that does it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listener, thank you so much for listening. As always, thank you, Jake Wagner, also for doing our intro and outro music. If you want to hear more of his music, you can do so at soundcloud.com/bopscotch.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Stay tuned to this channel. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. Our next episode will likely be over Hiroshima Mon Amour.
Not Songs from the Second Floor.
Nope. Disqualified.
Fair enough. All right, guys. Thank you for listening. Thank you for voting. Keep voting, and we will talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
We did it.